think sometimes people forget that I do this for a living. So for anyone new here, I'm a political scientist. I specialize in authoritarianism. And yes, German regime. Regime is used and misused within the mainstream media, public discourse, as a kind of shorthand for a bad or oppressive government. It's not only incorrect, it is dangerous, because if we cannot identify a regime, the centre of political power in a country, we cannot hold that power accountable. A regime is more than just a government. A regime covers the sitting government, but also every political party involved in a multi-party system. It includes the electoral law that governs that system. How are those parties allowed to act and why? How are those parties allowed to get elected and why? It covers both formal and informal institutions, so formal institutions like the law, but also informal institutions like patriarchy, the old boys club, which absolutely influence who gets political power and why. If we cannot identify those actors as political actors who have power in a system, we cannot hold them democratically accountable. In this particular context, German regime, I'm talking about regime actors including the police and the mainstream media, which over the last few years has become increasingly apparent is state-controlled. You cannot take government action in isolation. That government action, the foreign policy of Germany right now, exists within an institutional context. It is enforced by the police and it is propagated by the mainstream media. However, the police, the mainstream media, the government, they're not the only actors within the regime. The court system is also a part of the regime, and it is the court's job to hold other regime actors accountable. And there has been some success lately. There were cases where the judicial system, the courts, have held the police accountable for overreach, for repression. There was a case in Berlin, I think it was, where they tried to press criminal charges against a woman for saying, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." This was then overturned by the court system. However, if we do not use the term German regime, we ignore the embeddedness, the overlap between the police, the court system, the government, policy, and the mainstream media. We ignore that relationship with one another, that reinforcing role that they play to hold up the status quo. The regime can be understood as the status quo and all of the institutions that have the power to uphold it. I don't have any more time, I've got to go, but if you have any more questions, drop them in the comments. I will try to answer them or do a follow-up video, but I hope this helps.